Hi class, this is Group A. Today we're going to be talking about Henry Ford. My name is Brandon Yamas. I will be starting us off talking about Ford's education and personal life. Yasmin Barrientos will talk to you about his career path and company. William Berneo is going to talk about Ford's leadership style, and Isaiah Smith will be discussing his emotional intelligence. And then finally, Hani O'Meara will finish us off with whether or not we even think Henry Ford was an effective leader. So, to start us off, Henry Ford's education was definitely not traditional. It was very unconventional. He learned a lot simply by doing. He didn't have a traditional formal education. So, in his early years, he was taught in a one-room schoolhouse for 8 years. He never went to high school. He never went to college. He just really knew that he had an early affinity for tinkering with things and really just machines in general. This led him to building his first steam engine at the age of 15. So pretty amazing. The very next year after that, he moved to Detroit where he worked as an apprentice machinist. And this is really where he got a lot of practical hands-on experience in the field of mechanics. Years after that, he became an engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company. Yes, that's Thomas Edison's company, where he was promoted in just 2 years to chief engineer. His education was truly just a story of doing, and we can see this through his philosophy of learning through his museum and village, where his main goal was to provide school children with hands-on learning experience combined with the traditional style of teaching. One of his famous quotes is, "Learn to do by doing." Even despite all of his lack of formal education, he would later have a doctorate of engineering degrees from both University of Michigan and Michigan State University, as well as an honorary Doctor of Law degree from Colgate University. A couple last quotes from him is, "By looking at the things that people used and how they lived, a better and truer impression can be gained than could be had in a month of reading." And lastly, education is preeminently a matter of quality, not amount. So, Henry Ford's personal life. He was one of 8 children born on his family's farm on July 30th, 1963. He came from a farming family, so he spent a lot of his time helping his father in the fields, and thus the reason why he just didn't have much time for formal education. After his apprenticeship in Detroit, he would come back to the family farm and work at the Westinghouse Engine Company, where he would also tinker in his own little machine shop that he set up himself. He eventually built a steam engine-powered farm locomotive using a tractor and an old mowing machine. He would then move back to Detroit, married to his wife Clara Bryant, who you see in that picture on the left, who also grew up on a farm not far from his. Together they would have their one and only child, Edsel Ford, who in 1893 was born and eventually would become Ford Motor Company's president in 1919. Henry Ford was also known as a pacifist. He really tried to stop World War I with his peace ship expedition in 1915. Unfortunately, it was a great fail. He also had great interest in American history and was known for his insatiable curiosity for how things worked, his work ethic, commitment, passion for others, and his desire to improve society. And then I'll leave you with one last quote from Henry Ford before I pass you on to Yasmin. He said, "That man is best educated who knows the greatest number of things that are so, and who can do the greatest number of things to help and heal the world."
Hello class, my name is Yasmin Barrientos and I'll be talking about Henry Ford's career path. He was a farmer, an apprentice as a machinist, a chief engineer, and the founder of the Ford Motor Company. As Brandon mentioned, Henry Ford grew up on a farm, and from an early age, Henry Ford knew of hard work, especially working and helping his father with the harvest. But Henry needed something more, so with yearning curiosity, Henry taught himself how to fix and build machines. Apprentice as a machinist, with his self-taught experience and unwavering curiosity, Henry was able to find work in a machinery shop in Detroit at the age of 16, at the Flowers Brothers machine shop. In the following years of his apprenticeship, Henry learned to operate service steam engines and skillfully studied bookkeeping. His next notable role is when he became chief engineer. So Henry was hired as an engineer for the Edison Illuminating Company, and within 2 years, Henry quickly rose through the ranks and was promoted to chief engineer. Because Henry had no regular hours, he could experiment freely, so he built a gasoline-powered vehicle. In 1896, he completed his first horseless carriage, known as the quadricycle. Most notably, his role is when he became the founder of the Ford Motor Company. Determined to improve his prototype, Ford sold the quadricycle to fund the development of other vehicles. With $28,000 in cash, Ford was ready to bring an automobile to the market, and in 1903, the Ford Motor Company was established. The company was successful right from the start. So the leadership of Ford Motor Company. The first Ford car, the birth of mass production, the impact of Model A, and United Auto Workers. Henry Ford dedicated himself to creating an efficient and affordable automobile for everyone, which led to the introduction of the Model T, also known as Tin Lizzie, in 1908. The Model T revolutionized travel in less than 2 decades. It brought about one of the most significant and rapid changes in the lives of the common people in history. The birth of mass production. Henry Ford implemented mass production techniques that transformed the American industry, such as using large production plants, standardized interchangeable parts, and most notably, the moving assembly lines, reducing the time to build a car from 12 hours to 2.5 hours, and consequently lowering the cost of the Model T. The impact of Model A. After producing 15 million Model T vehicles, Ford yielded to pressure from his son and executives to discontinue the old model and launch the new Model A. The project cost nearly $250 million before the first Model A was assembled. Despite the initial success of Model A, it was eventually outsold by competitors, leading to its discontinuation in 1931 and contributing to Ford losing its industry leadership position. The United Auto Workers. In the late 1930s, despite his progressiveness for higher minimum wage, Henry Ford resisted unionization and clashed with the UAW. 50,000 Ford employers protested for better wages, overtime pay, and job security. Ford said he would rather close his factories instead of yielding to the union. After facing pressure from his son, the unions, and the government, Ford eventually agreed to a deal with union representatives. Ford Motor Companies established its initial contract with the UAW in 1941.
Hello everyone, I'm William Berneo, and I'll be discussing the leadership style of one of the most influential industrials in history, Henry Ford. Known for revolutionizing the automobile industry, Ford's approach to leadership was both groundbreaking and controversial. Autocratic leadership style. Henry Ford's leadership style was primarily autocratic. He had a clear vision of what he wanted to achieve and made decisions with little input from others. This centralized decision-making allowed him to implement his ideas quickly and efficiently. Transformational leadership. Although often seen as a transactional leader due to his focus on efficiency and productivity, Ford also exhibited transformational leadership traits. He inspired and motivated his employees by creating a compelling vision of the future and encouraging them to contribute to the company's success. Assembly line innovation. Ford's implementation of the assembly line in 1913 was a direct result of his authoritative style. He was determined to improve efficiency and reduce costs, which led to the mass production of affordable automobiles. This innovation transformed the manufacturing industry and made cars accessible to the average American. Strict control. Ford maintained strict control over the operations of his company. He set high standards for his workers and expected them to follow his instructions precisely. This approach ensured consistency and quality in the production processes, but left little room for employee input or creativity. Standardization. Ford was a pioneer in standardizing parts and processes, which allowed for faster production and lower costs. His emphasis on uniformity and repetition helped create a reliable product that customers could depend on. Innovation and influence. Ford's success with the Model T and the assembly line influenced countless industries and set precedent for mass production techniques. His vision for making cars affordable for the masses transformed transportation and contributed to the growth of the middle class. Criticisms. Despite his achievements, Ford's leadership style faced criticism for its rigidity and lack of flexibility. His autocratic approach stifled creativity and led to tensions with labor unions and employees who sought more input and autonomy. Henry Ford's leadership style was marked by a strong emphasis on efficiency, control, and innovation. While his autocratic approach allowed him to achieve remarkable success and reshape the automotive industry, it also highlighted the limitations of a leadership style that prioritizes authority over collaboration. Ford's legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of balancing efficiency with employee engagement and adaptability in leadership. Thank you for listening. I will now pass it on to Isaiah.
Hello all, my name is Isaiah Smith, and I'm going to be talking about emotional intelligence. In order to determine if someone is an effective leader or not, you must first analyze their emotional intelligence. There are 4 key domains to look out for when examining emotional intelligence, including self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Henry Ford had an elevated level of self-awareness because he knew his strengths and was aware of how he was received by others. Though he is mostly known for building the Ford Motor Company, it is actually the third automotive venture he founded following the Detroit Automobile Company, which was bankrupt after 18 months, and the Henry Ford Company, later known as the Cadillac Motor Car Company, upon Ford's resignation. Henry was able to create a third business because he knew that people believed in what he was capable of as a leader. This knowledge also led to Ford's entry into politics. In 1918, Henry Ford ran for the United States Senate, representing Michigan as a Democratic Party primary candidate, even drawing the endorsement of President Woodrow Wilson. However, he lost in a narrow election. Despite the few failures mentioned, Henry Ford maintained great self-management. In fact, he was not afraid to fail and saw each failure as a learning experience. He once said failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. Ford was also a firm believer in integrity, with the expectation of quality in doing what is right, even if no one would notice. Henry Ford was often an advocate for others, which demonstrated his social management skills. In 1926, he popularized the 40-hour workweek schedule. Ford increased the pay of his employees to compensate them for loss of hours. He made this change to improve overall worker morale, even if it risked productivity. This decision was seen as radical by his competitors, but it prioritized the work-life balance of his employees, ultimately leading to a spike in production by being able to have a third shift available for all the people that traveled to work for Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford had great interpersonal skills, which translated into great relationship management. Henry Ford built relationships in all his ventures, using them to yield investors and grow his business. He used this skill to earn the president's endorsement for Senate. As chief engineer for Edison Illuminating Company, he built a lifelong friendship with Thomas Edison, who often served as his mentor. Ford even maintained a relationship with Henry Leland, a former business associate from Detroit Automobile Company, which led to the acquisition of the Lincoln Motor Company.
Hello everyone, my name is Hani O'Mara. Today I'm going to evaluate the leadership of Henry Ford. As my colleagues have done a great job articulating his history, his accomplishments, and milestones, the question that lies ahead of us is, was Henry Ford an effective leader? Jumping into his innovation and vision, Henry Ford was undoubtedly an effective leader because of his remarkable innovation and vision. He revolutionized the automobile industry by introducing the Model T and pioneering the assembly line technique. These innovations made cars affordable for the general public, democratizing transportation and changing the way people lived and worked. His efficiency in production is also a remarkable standpoint. Ford's leadership in enhancing production efficiency set new industry standards. By perfecting mass production techniques, he also reduced the time and cost of manufacturing cars. This increase in productivity not only benefited his company, but also set a new benchmark for other industry standards. Ford's commitment to his people, to his community, and to his employee welfare is another hallmark of his effective leadership. By introducing the $5 workday, which doubled the standard wage at that time, Ford improved employee satisfaction and, in my opinion, the most important, their loyalty. This move also reduced turnover rates and boosted the purchasing power of his workers, stimulating the broader economy. The community impact of Ford's leadership extended beyond his company, impacting the community positively. His economic policies, like higher wages, contributed to the prosperity and stability of local economies. Ford also supported educational and health initiatives, such as establishing the Henry Ford Hospital and founding the Henry Ford Museum, which continue to benefit society till this day. His effectiveness as a leadership is further demonstrated by his contributions to agriculture. By promoting the use of machinery like tractors, he modernized farming practices, increasing productivity and efficiency in the agricultural sector. This initiative bridged the gap between industrial and rural advancements. Ford's contribution towards American history and culture highlighted his leadership cultural impact. He collected and preserved historical artifacts and buildings, ensuring that future generations can learn from the past. His efforts in historical preservation have left a lasting cultural legacy. Now, the challenges that we face in regards to Ford's criticism is that his resistance to labor unions and his issues with micromanagements were notable flaws. However, these challenges do not overshadow his overall effectiveness as a leader who brought about significant industrial and social changes. To conclude, Henry Ford was an effective leader who combined innovation, efficiency, and commitment to his employee and community welfare. His contributions to the automobile industry, agriculture, education, and historical preservation have left an inevitable mark on society. Despite some of the criticisms, his visionary leadership and lasting impact make him a quintessential example of an effective leader. Thank you.